Afternoon. Good afternoon once again. It's a very beautiful passage we have read this morning, and last two Sundays we heard the sermon about asking and receiving in the name of Jesus. Amen. And the second time was why sometimes we ask but we don't receive. So we went through the reasons why we are unable to receive sometimes when we ask something from the Lord. And one of the reasons was wickedness and the sins. And we read in the Bible that John chapter 9:31 verse is there that the Lord God doesn't hear the sinners. But today we are going to look into different things and in the Bible that how the sinners can be heard from the Lord. It doesn't mean that God is putting a wall between the sinners and Him. It is impossible for the Lord that He is turning His face from the sinners. God hears the sinners, but there are few things. There are few requirements at the end of the sinners, the people who want the Lord to hear their prayers and whatever they want to ask. So let's see about that. How the sinners can be heard by God. So this is the topic of the day, that how is it possible for the sinners that they can be heard by God. So the scripture was from Luke chapter 18 verse 9 to 14. And this is a very beautiful parable. When Jesus was among the sinners and tax collectors, the Pharisees and Sadducees and many of other rivals he had, and they are always blaming him. Why this person? Why Jesus is always among the sinners? And now Jesus told a parable that is talking about two persons. The one is Pharisee and the other one is tax collector. Now, this was a very beautiful lesson, the very beautiful message for the people around Jesus who were calling themselves righteous, who considered themselves as holy person, and the other people, they think, oh, they are unholy, they are sinners, and they had really put a wall between themselves and the people. So the Pharisees were one of those people. And before we go on, let's see about something about Pharisees. If we see the origin of this name, it can be seen that ancient Greek language, it says Pharisaios. So that is the word for Pharisee in Greek language, Pharisaios. And Arabic language, it is Parisa. And in Hebrew language, the plural word will be Parisaya. So these are different words in different languages has been used for the English word Pharisee. The meaning of Pharisee is separated one. Why the meaning is very unique, like separated one? Because they had separated themselves from the common people, from the other people. They are thinking, oh, we are something different, we are superior to other people, and they are separated from the other people. And this denomination among the Jews was started under the Maccabees about 160 years before Christ, before Jesus. So they had already started that denomination. And the historian Flavius Josephus, according to his research, he says there were about 6,000 Pharisees in Jesus' time when Jesus was preaching or he was doing ministry. So they were numbered about 6,000, almost 6,000 like that. What were their beliefs and traditions? Let's see. The very first thing is that they were believing in life after death, that there is a life after death. It doesn't mean that a person, when he dies, everything is closed, nothing. They believed that there is a life after death, and they believed in the resurrection of the body, and they were believing in the importance of keeping rituals and the need to convert Gentiles. They were thinking, when someone wants to be Jews or to come into their denomination like that, so they have to be converted in Judaism. So that was their beliefs. And if we see in Torah, in Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, we see that there are many sacrifices God has asked to offer before Him. But Pharisees, they promoted works, or you can say that they were more about obedience, about the law rather than the sacrifices. They were preferring the works over law, or you can say that we must obey the law rather than the sacrifices. So these were their beliefs, and according to them, there can be no compromise over law. They also believed in oral traditions like respecting the elders, whatever, like washing the hands. When Jesus was with the disciples, and they were complaining, why you are not washing the hands like that? So these are some of the traditions they had from their elders, and there are some oral. There is written law, and there is also some oral law. There are 2 types of law, and they were not only believing in the written law, that is the first 5 books of the Bible, but even in the oral law. So for them, both were very important. So they were practicing not only the written but also the oral law, the oral traditions. And the second character is tax collector. Tax collector were most hated person among the society that time. They were considered as murderers, cheaters, robbers, and they were associated with Gentiles because of their closeness with Gentiles. They were considered as socially, they were rejected. Religiously, they were regarded as unclean person, and politically, they were considered as traitors. And tax collectors were using very cruel, very hard methods to collect the taxes from their own people. There were different types of taxes in Roman Empire: income tax, toll tax, and even there was customs tax. And if there is import and export, the goods, the things, there was a tax for them. So, and even there were some special taxes, like if there is a war, or there is they are going to make a project like building. So there were some special taxes as well. So there were many taxes. The reason the Jewish community, the people, They were so much tired of these taxes collected by the tax collectors. And it was not the due taxes only, but they were collecting more than due taxes. If they have to collect like $50, for example, they were collecting 70 or maybe $100 from their own people. The reason they were hated much by the people. Now let's see uh, their response when they enter for the prayer. The first of all, we will see Pharisee before God. Verse 11 to 12 says, the Pharisee stood by himself and prayed. What was his prayer? God, I thank you that I am not like other people, robbers, evildoers, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week and give a tenth of all I get. According to uh, Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, the law, there was no regular, timing for fasting. There was only the Day of Atonement when they were asked for deny themselves, means to fast, and that was only a year, once a year. But this Pharisee, this denomination, they have made their own beliefs and traditions, their own doctrines, that they are fasting twice a week. There was nothing, there was no commandment from the Lord about fasting a twice or even a week like that. But that was their self-righteousness, or you can say that they wanted more spiritual growth. So they were fasting twice a week. Now, he's talking about giving a tenth, means tithe of all he gets from his resources. There were 3 types of tithe the Jewish community or the Israelites they offered to the Lord. The very first one was about the Levites, the tribe which was commanded by God to preach, to take care of the temple, because they were serving the Lord. So that was their right to receive from the people, because they had no inheritance. So only they were surviving only because of the tithe they were collecting from the people. The first tithe was about the Levitical or sacred tithe, and the second one was for the feast. That was the tithe of the fields, whatever they are growing, whatever the fruits are, the vegetables or whatever they are growing in the fields, they had to offer tithe for that. And the third one for the poor people. So there were 3 types of tithe, and he's talking about giving a tithe, that I'm giving tenth of all I get. No, the tax collector before God. You will see the difference between both the characters. The one person is highlighting before the Lord that, oh, I'm doing this and that. I'm fasting twice a week and I'm giving tithe as well. Now, tax collector. But the tax collector stood at a distance. He was standing by himself very proudly. Now he is standing at a distance very far. He would not even look up to heaven. But the Pharisee, he was very focused out, very proudly. He is standing very proudly. But he beat his breast and said, God, have mercy on me, a sinner. Now let's see the difference between the Pharisee versus tax collector. Now here we will see the difference between both of them. Pharisee, he is feeling pride. You can see a pride in Pharisee, that he is very proud. And he comes proudly before the Lord that, oh Lord, I am fasting twice a week and I am giving tithe as well. But the tax collector, he is very humble before the Lord, and he is standing at a distance, and even he didn't look up to the heaven. So he is very humble. Now, Pharisee is feeling very superior. You can see superiority in his character, but as compared to tax collector, tax collector is very, he is very humble, and he is feeling inferiority, and he is not looking up to the heaven. He is standing at the distance. Now, Pharisee is feeling that he is very holy and righteous person, because he is giving tithe, and he is fasting twice a week. But tax collector says, Lord, I am a sinner, so please have mercy on me. Now, Pharisee sees that he is very obedient to the law. He is very obedient to the Lord. But tax collector, he is feeling that, oh really, I am disobedient. I am not doing the things as written in the law. So he is feeling that he is disobedient. Pharisee is boasting. He is boasting before the Lord. But you see, the tax collector is repenting. He is repenting before the Lord. Lord, have mercy on me. I am a sinner. So that is the difference between Pharisee and tax collector. And then Pharisee is very self-centered person. He is self-exalting. He is exalting himself before the Lord. But the tax collector is a person who is showing self-denial before the Lord. Lord, I am a sinner, so please have mercy on me. Now, Pharisee is narcissistic and self-congratulatory prayer. His prayer is based on narcissism. Narcissism means the person who loves himself, the person who praises himself. So the Pharisee is, his prayer is like based on narcissism, and he is congratulatory, self-congratulatory prayer. On the other hand, you see the tax collector, his prayer is only for mercy.
Amen.
Lord, have mercy on me. There is a difference between both of them.